Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand. I am your host, Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal branding and business development company. I want to take you on a journey that takes another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal story, business conversations, and tips to improve your personal brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand podcast series, you will be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and allow you to build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build trust, and reflect who you are. Developing your 5-star personal brand is a great way to demonstrate your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh, spelled M-C-G-A-U-G-H, at 5-star BDM, B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Now let's begin with our next 5-star episode on Follow the Brand. After 30 years of telling stories, Debra Olshan Cooper discovered a disconnect in which kids coming out of college have a gap in the job market. She realized that collegiate professionals are stumbling when it comes to knowing how to pitch themselves and advocate for themselves for career advancement. Young professionals today need collaboration, cooperation, and a need to be valued, says Debra. Interviews today are conversations, and we must be able to bring new value when engaging with potential employers and clients. Debra helps her clients to tune in to their true selves and build confidence through their own real-life stories. Her program takes you from soup to nuts and helps you to land your dream career. Debra Olshan Cooper is the founder of Your Career Design Lab, a premier career coaching firm specializing in architect, designing, and curating each individual's career goals by crafting, telling, and selling an individual story, training on how to articulate the story, career strategies, and networking opportunities to walk through the career minefields and into your dream career. For 30 years, Debra has been an entrepreneur and CEO of 2 highly successful public relations and marketing firms, Real Life Communications and Marketing in New York City, responsible for introducing fashion, beauty, and luxury products to the marketplace, and Fresh Connect Solutions, bringing online solutions and marketing strategies to businesses, retail firms, hospitality, food and beverage, hotels, to name a few of the companies that have become well-known brands. Olshan Cooper has been responsible for placing her clients in numerous national publications, including the New York Times, New York Post, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and Los Angeles Times, and Huffington Post, to name a few. In addition, many of her clients have appeared on CNN, CBS This Morning, Good Morning America, and The View. Her background gives her young adults and adults alike the same ability to find their rightful place in their career spotlight. Olshan Cooper is a graduate of New York University with a BA in Communications and Journalism. She is certified in mindfulness and has garnered a certificate in advertising and marketing from New York University. Debra resides in South Florida with her husband. Her daughter is a business major at Montclair State University in New Jersey. Let's welcome Debra Olshan Cooper to the Follow the Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that you can follow. Welcome, everyone. This is the Follow the Brand podcast. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, and we're going to be graced today by Miss Debra Olshan Cooper. She is a wonderful person, and she is helping our young executives, people that are getting through their programs, whether they're undergrad or they're getting into now their MHA, they're about to hit the workforce with the with the force of that new generation that's coming out. And I think it's wonderful that she's going to help talk us through some of the skill sets that you will need as a young entrepreneur, young professional in the workforce. She's been doing this for a number of different years, and she's helped a lot of different people with things that you're not going to get out of your collegiate curriculum. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Debra.
Thank you, Grant, for having me today. I'm really excited to talk to your listeners.
Oh, I'm totally stoked, as they say. I'm stoked about it. First finding out that you're here locally, you're in Aventura. I think that's wonderful. You've got a program that you've been running for a while. So tell us more about your business. And then we're going to set back, because I know you love telling stories. So we're going to listen to you tell some stories that's going to help impact us for the long run.
Absolutely, Grant. Well, just a little background. My background is in PR and marketing and online solutions. So many, many years ago, for over 30 years, I owned my own PR and marketing firm in New York and here in Miami. And then about 3 years ago, so my job, obviously at that time, was to take fashion, beauty, luxury people, celebrities, music people, whomever and whatever, and bring them to the Today Show, to Good Morning America, to CNN. And my job was to tell stories about that person, of why a producer would want to put them on air. So I've had 30 years of telling stories. So about 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, actually, I had friends of mine calling me and saying, Debra, Abby has an internship in Chicago, but she's watching Netflix because she's not on the team that's doing anything. And I'd go, well, just have her speak to her boss. And my friend would go, she can't do that. I'm like what? And I go, well, just have her write an email that she'd like to be on it. She can't do that. And then it was just one of those things that I had all these friends asking me this. And I went, bingo. There's a gap in the marketplace where there's a disconnect for these kids coming out of college, not knowing how to advocate for themselves, how to pitch themselves, how to tell their stories, and more importantly, Grant, who they are. Kids are going into college not knowing what they want to do, who they are, and coming out in many cases the same way. Mm-hmm. And so I realized that there needed to be something done about that. And what I've created is a program to first excavate themselves. Who are you? Who were you when you were in your room, when you were younger, and you were lost in the passion or joy of happiness of what you were doing till your mom called you for dinner? It's like Joseph Campbell's quote, follow your bliss. Go back to that time, because that's where your bliss is. And, my father used to have a quote that said, you know what, Debra, find something you love to do, get really great at it, and the money will come. And so those are the things that I help today's youth, young people going into college, in college, coming out of college. I have 20-something resets, 30-somethings like I hate the what I'm doing, because I follow that financial path that my teachers and my parents told me to do, and now I'm miserable. All the way up, quite frankly, now I'm working with 50, 60 years old, where it's like, the 401k and all that thing about building your family is over. And now I want to go back and follow my passion.
Now you're cooking. That is awesome. So you connect people with their passion, yes, right? And their purpose.
That's correct.
And you make that emotional connection. You're making that mental and physical connection. Obviously, it's all spiritual, right? Because there's a faith and a belief in yourself and what you can accomplish, especially when you have someone coaching you along the way, right?
Absolutely. It's, throughout our lives, even when we're younger, or especially in middle school and high school, when everybody's so focused on what's your GPA, what's your AP classes. I used to say to people, what's AP classes? Being college ready. I was college ready when I got to college. Like, why did I have to, it's just such a money-making paradigm that just no longer exists. The college paradigm and mentality no longer is true for what the real world is out there. And what I try to show these kids is that you've been kind of scathed with the, you'd be good at this, instead of asking, who are you? And once you start to excavate, who are you? that's when the real truth comes out, and then we can get somewhere.
See, now I'm interested. So, this is a personal brand show. So I've got to ask you, how do you define your brand? How do you define yourself?
Well, what I say, when people ask me what I do, I say, and this is what I do, is I architect, design, and curate your unique career, your dream career. And what I do, and I actually start with a thing I've called the to-do list. And the to-do list, I think you remember a long time ago in advertising when V8 would go, I could have had a V8. It's
Yeah.
that moment when you realize you have a choice and the choice is about you. So I go back and I don't sit there. I don't never say I'm a headhunter because I'm not, but I take you through a program of self-discovery. A client of mine, I have a career coaching every Monday, a 6-week group coaching session. And she goes, you're like a professional therapist. I laugh, but it's kind of true. I make you laugh and I make you cry. But what I make you do is look at yourself probably in a way you've never done before because you've been so outside of yourself trying to get into that college, then trying to find your career and trying to find that happiness outside of yourself. But it really comes from inside and then bringing that value, that intrinsic value that you have and bringing that to companies today.
Man, that's breakthroughs. You get that breakthrough. I understand that because, there's a lot of programming that you get into, especially K through 12. And then there's the expectation. And I think we've had this model in which, you get out of school, you go to college, you go ahead and get you get your undergrad, right? But then you go out back, get your master's. You've done a lot of living. You're probably now 24 years old, but how have you engaged in the professional workforce at the point in time that you're actually leaving college? And have you really done some looking at yourself? Who are you? Now, you might know a lot about companies, you may know a lot about industries, you may know something about people, but what have you learned about yourself? That's got to be, I don't know, is it coursework? Is that your coursework?
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I do. Because what I try to show people is interviews today are conversations, networking and connections. People are hiring people based on, do I like you? Are you someone I jive with? Are you someone like I'd want to hang out with and have a beer after work? That's where I hate to say, that's where the workforce is going. That's what these Gen Zs have actually required of companies. I have a value. I can bring in this kind of thinking, but this is what I need on the other end. I don't need micromanaging. I don't need a higher up mentality. I need collaboration, cooperation, and I need to be valued. I was just working with a client yesterday who right out of school got a job at American Express. Now, woo, woo, the parents are like jumping up and down. We got the 6 figures going on. And he's always had anxiety, but this particular job led to depression because it was the wrong fit for him. He's an anxious guy. He needs to know what is expected of him. And because he did coding and stuff on American Express, it's always the back end. So we'd sit around from 9 to 5 waiting for like the bomb to go, to like the landmines to blow up. And it just was, and then they work from like 10 to 12 or 10 to 3 in the morning. And then he's expected to go on at 9 o'clock. Well, that just didn't work for who and what he was. And here's the thing. He forgot to ask, well, here's the team that you're going to be on, because he had done that as an internship. Do you want to still be on the team? Instead of asking, what will that team be doing? What I'm finding, Grant, is a lot of these kids, the Gen Zs, are afraid to ask. They're afraid to ask for what they want. They're afraid to go after what they want. And they're afraid to be upfront about what they need. And that's something that I'm helping them to define. I get often, well, I can't follow up with that. Or aren't I stalking them? That's the big one. Aren't I stalking them? And I have to tell you something. When I had my PR and marketing firm, when I'd say, okay, did you call Vogue? And did you get our dress, let's say, in the magazines? Well, I left a message. And I was doing, I hate to say the word, I was doing Trump before. I was like, you're fired. You're fired because you can't we're representing a client, one phone call, leaving a message is not going to cut it. And same for kids today when they're going after the job. Always bring new value, even if you have to call every 2 days. By the way, I saw this about your company. By the way, those are the people I'm going to hire. But to say, I really don't know what I want to do, but I thought I could talk to you. We just need to change the narrative and give them that confidence to go after their convictions.
Oh my God, you said it so right. The confidence. So I'm in sales. I've been a career sales professional 20, 25. I don't want to date my complete self. But I hear what you're saying. And I used to tell people all the time, so, oh, you're in sales. You're probably this guy that, is always annoying somebody to do something. It's like, no, that's nothing what I do. I help people to get what they need. That's basically what I do in sales. And sometimes you've got to do breakthroughs because you've got to be disruptive in a professional way, but bring value, right? And I say that because when I talk to, even my own children or other younger professionals, is that you need to understand how to sell yourself. And as I've learned, and I didn't even know this at the time, because I remember being in a sales training course, maybe, 20 odd years ago, and they said, there is no class on selling. You're not going to take a class in college and come out with a sales degree. But did you know that the number one highest paid job in the entire world or country is a salesperson?
Yeah.
That's what they do. This episode is brought to you by 5-Star BDM. 5-Star BDM is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for small to mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement in operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our 5-Star business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. The result is more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Please visit www.5starbdm.com to learn more and view all the episodes of Follow the Brand.
Grant, I love what you just said because it reminds me of a story of a young girl I was working with who wanted to be in sales. And so I looked at her resume and she had working at like Hollister, those kinds of like sales jobs, retail jobs. And she goes, and then she was working at like the Four Seasons down in Brickell. But what we came to find, I go, I feel like there's a story there, Sophia. Like, I just feel like you've got something in your background. She goes, well, I don't know if this is anything, but at 5 years old, my mom opened my Dora Explorer backpack and $20 bills fell out of it. And I'm like, what? And she goes, I think my mom thought it was like a drug dealer or something, And she said, Sophia, fess up. What's going on here? And she had to fess up that she always wanted to have lunch in the cafeteria, but her mom wouldn't let her. So her mom made salami slices, 5 salami slices in a sandwich for her every day. And while all the kids were going to the cafeteria buying their pizzas and hot dogs and hamburgers, she sat with the salami slices. And in that moment, she started to sell the salami. She'd go, too bad you guys have to have hamburgers. I get to have the salami. And she's like drooling on it. She said she would have the kids lined up. Now, she didn't sell the sandwich, which for a 5-year-old you could do. She sold each slice for $5. Now, I'm telling you something, Grant. When we got that story down, we were able to set up, interviews for her. She landed every job because in that story, it told her whole DNA. She was a born salesperson. It didn't matter what internship she had, what school she went to, of hospitality or whatever. This is a girl who was born to be a salesperson, and she got every job.
Man, that is wonderful. And you had to take her back to that time period in which she had that enthusiasm, she had that passion and that creativity, because as we talked about earlier, that programming you go to, sometimes you can put somebody's light out or at least dim it, right? And then they forget. And it's so important. You hear it more now. People tell them, hey, you need to do what you're passionate about. You'll make money. But when hey, the rat race comes quick, right? It's like, well, yeah, I want to do this. I want to be a creative designer, a web designer, something like that. But the rent is due this month, and I need to go over here and do this for now. But you've got to make that connection. But being prepared, strategically prepared, to have these intelligent conversations that you can tell a compelling story, not read a resume. Anybody can read a resume, right? That's what you can do now. You go to LinkedIn. I can get your resume on LinkedIn. I go to LinkedIn. There's everything I need to know. But is that really telling you everything you really need to know, right?
Grant, 100%. You know what it kind of reminds me of is like the SAT thing, which of course is like flipping on its head right now. People were getting into colleges based on putting in little bubbles. Now I get, and I almost feel like that's the same with the job thing, right? Resume is like equivalent to the SATs, but it says nothing about who that person is. And to your point, what I do after the to-do list is I have all the proverbial questions every potential employer will ask. What are your strengths? What is your weaknesses? Tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you know about the industry? And instead of, well, I just graduated from like every kid, I'll do like a role playing thing with them. I graduated from University of Buffalo. I'm a sophomore. I'm in accounting. I'm in like whatever. And, boom, the wall goes up. You can imagine on the potential employer. But instead, I help these kids craft 3 or 4 or 5 stories around all the questions. So first they go in with more confidence because it's not a head trip. Like, oh, I answered that wrong. Oh my God, that's not what I should have said. Instead of like, Grant, I'm so glad you asked that. I guess you could say I really want to be in accounting because when I was 10, and you go the story from there. And then no matter what they ask you, you're showing your truth. You're showing who you are. And that's what people want to know. It's the Maya Angelou quote. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget the way you made them feel. I get the kids to make them feel something for themselves so they can articulate that to others.
Man, I think that's wonderful. So when your kid goes like, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go, look for buried treasure because that's my passion. So sometimes you get that fear as a peasant, like, okay, well, I hope or struggling artists and things like that. But now, and I am so glad to see this happen, is that there was such an emphasis on the analytical side of learning. And we're now starting to see this creative side, your imaginative side that's coming out. You start looking at this cryptocurrency that are coming out. They call these NFTs. What is that? Non-fungible token. You're like, well, what is that? Well, you can draw something that people like, and obviously associated with some value, but you can make money like that. So your creative side starts really coming out. Maybe that the whole Mac world is starting to take over the PC world, right?
Oh, very well said, Grant. It's so true. I can't tell you how many kids I work with that during COVID, their side hustles, quote unquote, became their jobs. And that's what companies have to understand. These kids weren't sitting on their, I don't want to say the word, A's, watching 10 episodes of Friends. They were going out during COVID and making something happen for themselves. And then they're going to bring that value into your company that's run the same, not your company, but the same way, and bring a new life into it, a new force. And I try to get them to understand that their side hustle, A, can become their job, or B, it brings value added into the companies that they want. And they don't have to take those jobs. I just worked with somebody yesterday that has been doing her own thing. It's called My Third Hand, and it's brilliant. It's like, when we used to do home economics, she wants to bring that sensibility of home economics into real estate, finance, and entrepreneurship. Remember, we used to know how to make things. We used to know how to cook things. There used to be a sensibility towards being autonomous and being independent. We got away from that. And so she wants to bring that back into the fold. And then she got an interview for Blackstone, a huge, finance, like that was her wish list. But what's interesting? Now that she started her side hustle, which is getting traction, she's like, why would I want to go back to that?
Hey, there's a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit is
Correct.
alive and well. You just got to get that. And once you get that first financial traction, You start getting other people to believe in you, not just believe in you, but actually paying you because you have this skill set that they just can't get anywhere. And I'm starting to even, see, especially I have young adults. I don't have kids. I have adults, right? And seeing what their thought processes are, and that they're in this new economy. It's the new economy. They're not into this blue chip thing. That's what dad and grandpa does, blue chip. I'm into this new economy. It's a game changer.
Correct.
Before you had to come from a whole long line of legacies. Like, no, this is brand new. This is like the wild, wild west with the gold rush right now. And if you know how to navigate it and understand, you're not just dealing with one country or your local market, your regional market. You're dealing in a worldwide economy that got much smaller during COVID. And
That's
your abilities, maybe down the street, no one is that interested. But guess what? There's somebody on the internet that is super interested in your abilities.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. When we were talking earlier on, not only college kids are coming out of college, but what I'm finding, to your point, is our generations who have raised families. And it's like, hey, what about me now? And instead of retirement, it's really a like reinvention of themselves. Like they're saying the great resignation is the great reinvention. And, I don't think our generation is getting the gold Rolex watch at the end of our 50 years and then going out on the golf course. That mindset is not about that anymore. Now it's going back to what your passion is. It doesn't need to be golf and tennis and, coming in for your bologna sandwich at lunch. It could be following your passion. I have two recent clients. One was the creative director for some advertising agencies and the Miami Herald. And then he's now a plane broker, like a private plane broker. But his passion's always been women empowerment movies. And he was always a movie buff. And I said, hey, I can open some doors for you, because it's also not what you know, but who you know, as you know. And so I just started opening doors. He wrote a treatment for a true story. And now he's got producers that are pitching it to Hulu, literally within a month of us working together.
Wow.
And his whole demeanor has changed. But like from selling planes, trying to sell something for 6 months. And then the wife comes in and goes, I don't really like the color of the seats. And then the whole deal is done.
Right.
To making something happen for himself and being more in control of his destiny.
Absolutely. I mean, so this newness, this new
Yeah.
awareness that's happening, I think, for a lot of people. Because I was at a seminar about a year, maybe 2 years ago, probably before COVID, and it was such an enlightening realization I came to, that the person that was talking about is like, this is the first time in U.S. history we've got 5 generations in the workforce.
Wow.
5 generations. And he prefaced this by saying, what does James Bond look like? And depending on your age and your experience, James Bond looks like 5 different people.
That's right. That's so interesting. What an interesting analogy. That's so true.
Yeah, it's a realization. So when I look at you and what you're doing, you were in this huge industry. You're in the PR, you're in the branding, you're dealing with sounds like a very, lot of lights, sound, camera type industry. And
Yeah.
you pumped the brakes and went into a whole nother direction. I mean, what was your epiphany?
Throughout my whole life, to be honest with you, my kind of trajectory has always been finding something that did not exist before. I mean, going back, way back, before I started my PR firm, I worked with Elizabeth Taylor. And I worked with a PR woman who happened to have been Richard Burton's and Elizabeth Taylor's publicist. And I started to work with her. And we worked on AIDS at the time. And I'll never forget, I was in LA and Elizabeth said, do you want to come to UCLA with me? Like I'm going to say no to Elizabeth Taylor. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like standing literally in the hallway as she went in to see Rock Hudson. And at that time, AIDS, of course, was taking hold. And AIDS Project Los Angeles at the time, APLA, had contacted us for Elizabeth to be like one of the chairs of the first ever commitment to life AIDS benefit with Betty Ford. And nobody knew about AIDS. They thought it was a homosexual disease. And my job at the time was to tell the world that it was going to be the disease of every man, woman, and child at that point. And I went, oh, that's so interesting, to create history, to create something that nobody was aware of before. Then I went and worked with Bob Pittman, the creator of MTV. And we created the Morton Downey Jr. show, the first of its kind reality shows, and Cops, which was the first of its kind reality, kind of show. And I'm like, wow, it's so interesting to create things that never existed before. So throughout, my PR and marketing is taking things that nobody's heard about and putting it into the spotlight. And then when I saw the same thing happening for kids, that they just weren't getting their 15 minutes, they didn't even know how to go for it. I wanted to create a platform that would allow them the spotlight on them and be able to go forth onto the stage of their careers and become what they're meant to become. And that's just sort of how it's always been for me, is just seeing holes in the marketplace and figuring out a way to fulfill them.
Awesome. Well, you've been doing a tremendous job. I like what we've shared today. And I always unplug. That's one of my signatures I do. I say, I'm gonna unplug. I want you to talk directly to my audience. I've got a lot of young professionals, early careers that are out there, but I've also got, because I'm one of them, in this generational shift, looking at what other avenues are out there, for me, and don't just, work for 50 years and look for a pension and a social security check and go off. I mean, there's more to life. You don't want to just that's that quick trip to your last site. So you got to keep living, or you get what's that site that in the movie, get busy living or get busy dying, right? So one of the two. So I want you to be able to just talk to my audience, tell them what you haven't said already, why they should take a look at what you're offering, and then how to contact you as well.
Sure. If anybody's out there listening where you're in a career that you're just not happy with, or you're coming out of college and you're going, what now? What's out there? My program at Your Career Design Lab is really maybe something for you, where it's a strategy. And I think a lot of kids today don't realize it's a strategy. They think they can go on Indeed and Glassdoor, and then they get so demoralized because nobody's looking at it. As I said, I don't say I'm a headhunter, but I do open doors because I've been in the business for 30 years. I know every conceivable business. And that really becomes a game changer for your listeners. If I vet you, I work with the client to vet them so that when the door opens, they're ready to walk in. And typically what happens when they walk in, they land that job because it's a win-win. It's a win for the potential employer, the company, and it's a win for the client. And so I create those win-win situations, and I show people how to use LinkedIn, how to write, emails, even things people don't realize today, that there's a strategy. So that's basically what I do, is I take you from soup to nuts and then open the door for you to land your dream career. And how you can find me is on my website, of course, which is www.yourcareerdesignlab.com, or on Instagram at yourcareerdesignlab.com.
Oh, you've got to have the Instagram. That's the whole thing. You got Instagram with the LinkedIn. I'm starting to look into TikTok. I think it's kind of cute, kind of fun. I'm not sure about the whole business thing, but people do it. And we find all these different ways to communicate with each other. That's the whole point. Let's communicate with each other and share valuable ideas. You've been sharing a lot of your value with me today. I really appreciate you, Debra. Thank you very much for coming on the Follow the Brand show. I want to tell everybody again to tune into us at 5-Star BDM. That's 5-Star, B for brand, D for development, and for masters.com. And until next time, you take care, Debra. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Grant.